Alright, so we're going to pick up in the Permian period, which is about 299 million years ago. At that point in time, plants, we did have vascular plants. That means, again, they have xylem and phloem. And we're going to start seeing our gymnosperms, which are plants that will reproduce using seeds. And now animals, the reptiles will continue to diversify, and the amphibian numbers will decrease as the reptiles start to kind of take over. So here we can see Pangea. We can see Gondwana down here, which is the southern continents, and then up here we would call this part up here Laurasia. You can kind of see where the current continents are today. Here's Europe, here's North America, South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia. So you can see how those organisms then could easily walk from continent to continent at this point in time. Another interesting thing is if you look, you can see underwater where some of the continents that, or I shouldn't say continents, the countries are today that have large quantities of oil reserves. So we've got Turkey, Iraq, Tibet, and Arabia. So it's kind of cool seeing where the countries used to be. So here are some of the Permian organisms. We saw the Scutosaurus is up here, and we've got some of the Dimetrodons over there. So this period, it ended with a mass extinction, and we saw that in a movie with the large meteor that hit our planet. We enter the Mesozoic, meso meaning the middle. It's divided into three periods, Triassic, Jurassic, and the Cretaceous. And we're most familiar with the Jurassic period because of Jurassic Park, of course. And that is where most of the dinosaurs were that we're all familiar with, or the time period they come from. So during the Triassic period, 251 million years ago, we have the gymnosperms that dominated. So these, again, are plants that reproduce using seeds. So we're talking about like pine trees and oak and stuff like that. And then we have these things called cycads, which have this really huge seed that kind of grows in the middle. Most people think it's a palm tree, but they are a different group of plants. And they thrive during this period. It is also referred to as the age of the cycads because of these particular plants. So here's a picture of some cycads. I'm sure if you've been down into to Florida, you have seen these plants. Any of the southern tropical kind of states down there, they have these cycads all over the place. So during the Triassic period, reptiles became better adapted to land. They can lay eggs away from water. They have that scaly skin that prevents dehydration. Here's just kind of a little picture representing that time period. So during the Triassic period, we actually had the first mammal to appear and the first dinosaurs. Now, when we watch our video, we're going to actually get into a little more detail. We're going to watch a movie on Before Dinos, and they're going to really talk and show you what distinguishes a reptile from a dinosaur. But one of the things they'll talk about is dinosaur legs are directly underneath their hips versus reptiles, which stick out from the sides of their bodies, so their stomachs are directly above the ground. So we know that the dinosaurs were able to outcompete the mammals. They were quite the predators. So mammals kind of had to stand their ground and stay safe. Their habitat was very limited because of the dinosaurs. But on the other hand, we have things that are taking place in the sea. And in the sea, we're seeing corals and mollusks starting to dominate the seas. Here's a good example of one of those mollusks. It's the chambered nautilus, which still pretty much exists today. Not much change from what it looked like during the Triassic period. So we have the Jurassic period, which was 199.6 million years ago. We often refer to this as the age of the dinosaurs. We could say this is when they peaked. We also noticed that during that time period, we also started to see flowering plants. Those are called angiosperms. So instead of reproducing using seeds, or what we call naked seeds, we now have these flowering plants that produce fruit or protected seeds. We also have different flying reptiles in this period called pterosaurs. We're also going to see some marine reptiles that fed off fish in the seas that were quite impressive as well. So during the Jurassic period, dinosaurs varied in size from a large bird to a tractor-sized stegosaurus. Dinosaurs were thought to be cold-blooded, but now evidence is indicating they were warm-blooded animals. So this has been an area of contention amongst the paleontologists as to whether dinosaurs were warm or cold-blooded. But now that we know that dinosaurs are the ancestors to birds and birds are warm-blooded, we've found a lot of relationships and a lot of evidence that have supported that dinosaurs may actually have been warm-blooded animals. We also see that they are found in very large herds, and they have social behaviors that have been indicated by fossils. Our whole thinking on T-Rexes has been revamped, and it's just amazing the new information they have about just the T-Rex alone. So here we have an artist's rendition as to what it may have looked like during the Jurassic period. One of the things I want to point out right here is a very famous organism, and we're going to talk about this organism, Archaeopteryx, here in a minute, as being a transitional fossil. So we look at the Cretaceous period, which is 145.5 million years ago. Plants, not a whole lot is happening. We still have the angiosperms and the gymnosperms are probably becoming a little bit more diverse. For animals, though, we start to see some placental mammals appearing, and our modern insect group appears. So in the Cretaceous period, we start seeing these theropods, and theropods were organisms that walked on two legs, and they had this S-shaped neck, and is most likely these are the ancestors to birds. This is a famous fossil called Archaeopteryx, which I mentioned earlier, and you can see the presence of feathers here and here, and yet on the end of those wings you can see claws, and we do not have claws on birds. So not only do we have feathers, we have claws, we also saw scales in some of these fossils. It just was such a big finding in the paleontology world. And like I said, this is probably one of those transitional, well, I should say it is a transitional fossil from dinosaurs to birds. So here's kind of like an artistic, again, drawing of what Archaeopteryx may have looked like, and we can see the claws here on the end of the wings. We can see this reptilian-like beak, and we also have scales here on the leg. We also have vertebrae in the tail, which we don't see that in birds' tails. So a lot of similarities between birds and reptiles. So this, like I said, this is Archaeopteryx, which is probably one of the most famous transitional fossils we have today. So the end of the Cretaceous period was ended again by a mass extinction. This was the end of the road for the dinosaurs and the beginning to the age of the mammals.